Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Wetherell. I'm the Lincoln Woodstock School District Moderator. I call our annual meeting to order. Due to COVID-19, the school board voted to hold our annual meeting in accordance with House Bill 1129. That is 2 virtual meetings followed by voting on the official ballot and alternative written ballot. Tonight, articles will be introduced. There'll be time to speak about articles and ask questions. You also have the opportunity for the next 2 days to submit comments in one of 3 ways. You can email community@lin-wood.org, telephone 603-745-2051, extension 210, or drop off at the superintendent's office at 78 Main Street, Unit 3 in Lincoln. Comments are due by 5 p.m. on Thursday. Please include your name and address with your comment. On Thursday, March 18th at 6 p.m., we'll reconvene the meeting. The school board may review and discuss comments. Per House Bill 1129, school board members may propose amendments. A vote of the school board members on motions and to move the question and finalize warrant will be taken. Voting will occur on Friday, March 26th from 2 p.m. until 6 p.m. at the Middle High School Multipurpose Room. Please note that is a change from previous years when we used the elementary school. Again, this year, Friday the 26th, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Middle High School for voting. The rules of order for tonight: each participant will treat each other participant with respect and courtesy. The moderator will not allow personal attacks or inappropriate language. Anyone wishing to address the meeting will use the virtual raise hand feature and wait to be recognized by the moderator. Please have your video active if possible. Speakers will begin by stating their name. All other speakers will be considered out of order. I will allow non-voters to speak. However, please identify yourself as a non-voter. The initial presentation on articles will be limited to 10 minutes total. All speakers in debate will be limited to 3 minutes, including warning at 1 minute remaining. Time to be determined by the moderator. All new speakers who desire to speak will be given a chance to do so before one is given a second opportunity on the same issue. The chat function on Zoom may be turned off. If it is active, comments there may be read out loud and are public information. Please avoid using chat. Each article needs a motion and a second in order to discuss it, and we'll save that for Thursday. Tonight's just informative, so we don't need that for tonight. Because of this unique 3-part system on Thursday, we'll leave those motions open and move on to the next article. The moderator can be overruled by a majority of the meeting, and state statutes do govern legal procedures not listed here, including House Bill 1129. Articles 1, 2, and 3 are all voted on during the day. Article 4 is to hear reports, and on Thursday, I'd entertain a motion to accept them as written in the report. So we'll move on to Article 5. Passage of this article override the 10% limitation imposed on the appropriations due to the non-recommendation of the Budget Committee to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $540,000 for the purpose of upgrading HVAC system and controls at the Lin-Wood Elementary School, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $540,000 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA Chapter 33. To authorize the school board to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and determine the rate of interest thereon, and further to raise and appropriate an additional sum of $13,500 for the first year's interest payment on the bond. The school board recommends this appropriation. The Budget Committee does not recommend this appropriation. A 3/5 ballot vote is required. And I'm going to recognize chairs first, and then we can move on from there. So Matt Manning.
Thank you, Rob. I believe Brian Angelone is going to speak to this article.
Hello, everyone. Brian Angelone. I just wanted to give kind of a brief background. We've had this discussed multiple times over the past few years, but I will just get to the point. Warrant article number 5 is to replace the original HVAC system, excuse me, for Lin-Wood Elementary School. This project is going to include the replacement of the original boiler and HVAC system, upgrade the controls, replace the AC units, and we're now going to currently stick with the same oil fuel source. A little background on it. It started in July of 2016. New Hampshire DES issued us a notice of intent to red tag our oil tanks with a letter of piping deficiencies. From the times of October 2016 through November 2018, the board did explore many options, and I was involved, and some other people that are here, not on the board, currently were involved. One was just to go ahead and fix the piping issue. There was replacing the full elementary system. There was trying to utilize a biomass system for both schools, a combined heating plant, which would run both schools. We also looked at different ways to pay for this system, by using what is considered a performance contract. That would have been a good option. However, we didn't qualify for one after, showing how the school is. There just wasn't enough meat on the bone for the performance contract companies to step up and take over the project. Around the time of June 2019, by this time we've explored multiple options. We've voted to proceed with engineering services to redo the heating systems and controls. We entered an agreement at that time with Eaton and Associates to design and build out the new system, including a dual fuel LP and number 2 oil burner plant, revitalization of the failed air conditioning systems, reversal and closure of the underground fuel oil storage tank, creation of above ground tanks, digital controls, replacing this old pneumatic system. And that's a big part of it, is the system that we're currently under runs on pneumatic controls. And in the HVAC world, it's getting pretty antiquated and parts are becoming more difficult to find. Maintenance cost is high also on the system that we have currently in place. In February of 2020, we reviewed these plans. We held our bond hearing last year, and we voted to put the system onto the March 2020 article, doing propane fuel and bonding over 10 years. The 2020 warrant was estimated at about $600,000. Once things changed last year due to COVID and we shut down, at our annual meeting, we unanimously agreed to postpone this project, just because there was a lot of things going on in the state at that time, or in the world. There still are. In July of 2020 through October, we remained in contact with DES about our fixing plans, because they had given us kind of a stay as we had done the project last year. In December of 2020, DES contacted us with a notice to have the elementary tank piping deficiencies fixed by January 2021. The district chose then to put the oil tanking project out to bid and plans to fix it and our new system. On February 3rd of this year, we held a bond hearing for the elementary HVAC system to put the project back on the 2021 warrant articles. The proposal then was revised to include oil heat as opposed to propane. And that's as a result of our plans now to have to fix the oil piping, which is being driven by DES at this point. Its estimated cost savings is about $60,000, and it's reflected in the revised cost of $540,000. So now we're here today. The warrant article for $540,000 to replace the elementary HVAC system. The oil tank pumping deficiency is currently being addressed and paid out of the current year 2021 budget. All the HVAC operating system will be replaced with more efficient, updated control system. Keep in mind, the system is just about 30 years old. We've studied this project for going on 5 years now. And our feeling is, with bond rates as low as they are right now over the next 10 years, this keeps us in line with what has been spent on facilities projects per year over the past 10 years, including our roofing, flooring, gym floors, locker rooms, and renovation projects and the such. The cost to the Lincoln taxpayer will be 5 cents per thousand, and the cost to the Woodstock taxpayer will be 10 cents per thousand over the 10 years. And that is what I have for you, unless you have questions.
Thank you, Brian. And I'll be looking for that virtual raise hand feature if anybody has questions or comments on that article. Okay, we'll move on to Article 6. To see if the district will set the salaries of the school board at 1,000, vice chairperson at 1,250, the chairperson at 1,500, the board negotiation team at $150 per day, the moderator at $90 per meeting, the school district clerk at $250 per meeting, ballot clerks at $80 per meeting, supervisors of the checklist at $90 per meeting, the school district treasurer at $4,000 per year. The money for this article is included in Article 7. And I don't know if that requires a presentation from anyone, so I'll just give a moment if anyone has questions or comments. And we'll move on to Article 7. To see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the Budget Committee's recommended sum of $8,267,338 for the support of schools for the salaries of school district officials, employees, and agents, and for the payment of statutory obligations of the district, and to authorize the application against said appropriations. Such sums are to be estimated to be received from the state aid together with other income. The school board to certify to the selectmen of each of the towns of Lincoln and Woodstock respectively, the balance to be raised by taxes by the towns of Lincoln and Woodstock in accordance with the formula adopted by the Lincoln Woodstock Cooperative School District. And the school board further to certify to the selectmen of each of the towns of Lincoln and Woodstock the amount to be raised by taxation by each of the said two towns. This article does not include appropriations in any other warrant article. The school board recommends $8,383,796. And I'll recognize Tucker Barnaby, the budget chairperson.
Yeah, hi, hello. Yeah, the budget committee, after extensively looking at everything, again, trying to figure out a way to have a sustainable budget. It's very difficult, has decided to reduce the budget by 1.2% from the recommended. As everybody heard, we listened to the community. We didn't go with a lot of our changes. There are some changes in the budget. Again, off the top of my head, there is not having a fence. There is having our own grounds people do the work rather than contract work. So we have a reduction of $116,458. Sorry, don't have my glasses on. In difference to what was actually presented by the school board. Again, it's a 1.2% difference from the budget that was given to us. Really, we'll just open it up to any questions from there.
Rob, can I respond and just clarify for the school board?
Yes, you may.
Okay. The budget presented by the school board includes 44 teachers, 30 support staff, and administrators for approximately 288 students, including support and services for 54 children with IEPs and educational plans under IDEA. It also includes the technology resources, materials, and supplies that aid in the teaching process. It includes 2 school buildings and grounds that house the students and staff for the single cooperative school district. It also provides additional programs like vocational classes, co-curricular activities, including athletics, and a charter school option for students who need an alternative place to learn. It provides small class sizes below the state average where students get individualized attention and support to aid in their academic success. It provides nursing care, social work services, extended year summer programs, both for academics and enrichment. The district provides transportation, healthy meals, and a safe and caring learning space for the students in the Lincoln and Woodstock community. Our small school district provides an above average educational experience with programs and opportunities available to all students, grades K through 12, that the district has formulated in this budget. Overall, the budget the school board presented was lower than last year's approved budget committee budget by $100,542. The tax impact of the school board budget is a decrease of 8 cents per thousand for Lincoln property owner and 15 cents per thousand for Woodstock property owners. Based on the feedback that was received from the community during the 4 hours of budget hearings, the school board continues to support the budget that we presented. Thank you, Rob.
You're welcome. And depending on the app that you're using to access Zoom, I have a button over on the top right-hand corner that says more, and that's where the button is for raise hand. So if you have a question or comment at this time, if you virtually raise your hand, we'll recognize you. Okay, we'll move to Article 8. To see if the school district will vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Lincoln Woodstock Cooperative School Board and the Lin-Wood Education Association, NEA, New Hampshire, which calls for the following increase in salaries and benefits over this paid in the prior fiscal year. Year 2022, $114,887. 2022-2023, $112,635. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $114,887 for the 2021-2022 fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributed to the increase in salaries and benefits over those that would be paid at current staff levels in accordance with the most recent collective bargaining agreement. The school board recommends this appropriation. The budget committee recommends this appropriation. And we'll call on Matt Manning as the chair.
Rob, Tammy Ham is going to speak to this article.
Great.
Hi there. I have a great cheat sheet provided to me by Deb O'Connor. Thank you very much. The collective bargaining agreement represents all certified teachers with a 2-year agreement. The increase in the BA base by $700 per year, $700 per year over the 2 years. Each teacher receives a step increase, or if they're off step, they receive a $2,000 increase. The average increase for the group is 3.5 in year 1, 3.4 in year 2. If anybody has any other questions, I will do my best to answer them, but that's the basics of it.
Thank you, Tammy. Okay. Article 9, shall the district, if vote Article 8 is defeated, authorize the Lincoln Woodstock Cooperative School Board to call one special meeting at its option to address Article 8 cost items only. I don't think we need discussion on that tonight. It's just a preventative article. So Article 10, to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $154,000 for the replacement of the Lin-Wood Middle High School roof area encompassing the middle school hallway and classrooms and main entrance hallway, approximately 14,000 square feet. This is a special warrant article per RSA 33:3 Roman numeral 6D and RSA 32:7 Roman numeral 5. The school board recommends this appropriation. The budget committee recommends this appropriation. And I'll recognize Matt Manning.
Thanks, Rob. I believe Vance Pickering was going to speak to this article.
Yep, I am. Thanks, Matt. As Rob said, both the school board and the budget committee supported this warrant article. And as we all know, roofs over time start to age, start to fade, and need replacement, just like our homes. I believe the school roof, when it was put on decades ago, was roughly 20 to 30 year shingles, just like, or 20 to 30 year roofing lifespan, just like many of our homes. And as it started to fade over time, we had to replace different sections of the roof with membrane products and patch some leaks. And starting in the 2013-2014 school year, we started a huge project of replacing our middle school and high school roof year by year, piece by piece. So since 2013, we have spent approximately $386,621 to replace the roof. There are 2 sections left. We're asking for money this year to finish the roofing project, and that dollar amount would be $154,000. If approved, The tax impact for a resident of Lincoln would be 12 cents on the thousand, and for Woodstock, 23 cents on the thousand. After speaking with Mark Hood over the last couple of weeks, the product that we're going to use on this roof is a 25 to 30 year lifespan. So, and it's the similar product that we've been using since 2013. So with that said, this would finish our entire building roofing project. We wouldn't have any roofing dollars to put in unless there's a catastrophic injury to the roof for, according to my math, until at least the 2038, 2039 school year. And that's 25 years out from when we started this project in 2013. So I think both boards thought it was a no-brainer and would like your support as you've supported it every year over the last 7 or 8 years. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vance. Okay, Article 11, to see if the school district will vote to establish a special education capital reserve fund under the provision RSA 35:1 for the purpose of meeting the expenses of students with disabilities and to raise and appropriate the sum of $184,000 with the sum to come from the June 30, 2021 unassigned fund balance contingent upon the passage of Article 12. Further, to name the school board and agents to expend the said fund. The school board recommends this appropriation. The budget committee recommends this appropriation. I'll recognize Matt Manning.
Thanks, Rob. I think we were going to ask Deb to speak to this. No, we weren't.
Jay.
Oh, Jay
Jay's
is. I'm sorry. Jay's handling everything, I think, from here on out, aren't you, Jay?
No, not quite. But
okay.
So good evening, folks. The special education balance or fund that we currently have is in the form of a trust fund. That requires the school board and the district to hold a meeting, and that has to be appropriately posted. There's sort of time limitations on how quickly we can make that all happen. And that has worked in the past, but in order to streamline the process for the expenditure of special education funds, it was recommended by the district's attorney to create the capital reserve fund. And the form of the capital reserve fund essentially allows for quicker and more expedited emergency expenditures of the money in the fund. It's obviously that money is still allocated for special education purposes. That money is still accountable and it's audited on an annual basis. And so for all intents and purposes, the monitoring of the expenditure of the money wouldn't change, except to the extent that prior to the expenditure, it wouldn't require a sort of elongated process of posting meetings and having meetings, which would pose some difficulties. So the suggestion from the attorney was to create the capital reserve fund to streamline that process. The appropriation that's recommended as part of this creation of the capital reserve fund is the amount of money that is currently in the special education trust fund. So there is not going to be any additional money, there is another separate warrant article that we'll talk about later, but there's the money, the 183 or 184,000, I believe that's a part of this appropriation is money that is already in the current special education trust fund. The process that we have to go through in order to establish the fund is to essentially let the money that's in the trust fund lapse when we get rid of the trust fund. That will go back into the general fund, and then the money that's going to be put into the trust fund has to be allocated through the district meeting process. And so we're not asking for another $180-something thousand. It's the same money that's currently in the special education trust fund. So the warrant article is basically just a way to streamline the process and make it easier to basically use the funds in the manner that they're intended without having to go through a sort of an elongated process. I don't believe that the board or the budget committee is taking any position on this. It's basically just the recommendation of our council, and so we're taking that recommendation, putting it to you folks to vote on. Thank you. Oh, sorry, one more thing. I would note, I guess, that should this article not pass, then the next article also fails. They're linked in such a way that we're not going to be left without a reserve of money for special education unforeseen costs. So the idea would be we're going to have one or the other, depending on the way that the vote comes out. But contingent upon passage of this article, we are going to get rid of the currently existing special education trust.
Thank you, Jay. In Article 12, to see if the district will vote to discontinue the Special Education Expendable Trust Fund created in March 1998, said funds in the approximate amount of $184,000 as of June 30, 2021, will accumulated interest to date with a withdrawal are to be transferred to the school district's general fund contingent upon the passage of Article 11. And I think you did a good job explaining both those articles at the same time. So I'm going to move right on to Article 13. To see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate 60% up to the amount of $60,000 to be placed in the school facilities expendable trust fund, with said funds to come from the June 30, 2021 unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2021. The school board recommends this appropriation. The budget committee recommends this appropriation.
And I'm going to be speaking to that as well, Rob. I'll be speaking to all of the trust fund articles that are on the warrant. The purpose of the trust funds, as I mentioned, is to account for some unforeseen cost items that arise during the course of the school year, things that we couldn't have budgeted for because they sort of come up throughout the year. It just as a sort of a quick example of some of the things that in the past few years that we've dealt with. We had to install an AC in the gym. That was about a $44,000 expenditure. We installed some windows in the middle school wing of the high school building. That was about $25,000. We've done some cabling projects, tree removal. We used the facilities trust fund to fund the engineering of the elementary school heating project, and things of that nature. So essentially the trust fund, particularly the facilities trust fund, is one that sees a lot of use. And the general purpose of that is to allow the school to have a cushion of money to address facilities issues as they come up throughout the school year. We recommend the $60,000 because that is the most used fund, and some of those items can be rather expensive. So I believe that those are both recommended, or that's recommended by both boards, or the budget committee and the school board, and so we'd ask the voters to support that.
Thank you, Jay.
I do see a hand raised.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Jerry Stringham.
Yeah, thanks. Just say we support this, but kind of related, there's a few other articles to use funds. Basically, these are funds that were appropriated for last year and then not spent. So the idea is to put them into these reserve funds to use. This is the most active fund. Some of the other warrant articles deal with use of additional money. The budget committee's feeling was to put these funds into this particular trust fund, as the other trust funds really have more than enough funds in them already. So we recommended this appropriation, but we would be supportive of increasing it. For example, putting another 10,000 into a vehicle fund that already has $57,000 of cash in it, and we have no plans to buy a vehicle at this point. So we'd rather have it in there because it creates challenges to have to move money around. In addition, this particular fund may be able to be used for things for partially defray the cost of something like a new heating system, for example, rather than borrowing the money. Say if our recommendation maybe to put that project off a year and finish the roof is followed through, there's plenty of money in this to maybe partially defray borrowing money. So that was the gist of our conversation in the Budget Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jay, you may go.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention, and Jerry brought it up, but I don't think that I was clear when I was speaking to these trust funds. Generally, the trust funds that we are putting money into, that money is not money that's going to be raised through taxation. That's money that is already that's sort of left over from this year's operating budget, and it only gets put into those trust funds to the extent that we have it available. So if we have $100,000 left over, as proposed by the school board and in the warrant articles, that would be split up and allocated throughout those trust funds, and we wouldn't be asking the taxpayers to come up with additional money. Those funds already exist, and they're just sort of unspent money from last year. But I think that's important to note, and I appreciate Jerry bringing that up, but I'm not sure I was clear on that.
Okay, we'll move to Article 14, to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate 10% up to the amount of $10,000 to be placed in the school vehicle expendable trust fund, with said funds to come from the June 30, 2021 unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2021. The school board recommends this appropriation. The Budget Committee does not recommend this appropriation.
And that's going to be me again, Rob. So this was an article not recommended by the Budget Committee, but it is recommended by the school board. And again, the purpose of the Vehicle Expendable Trust Fund is for unforeseen circumstances. And I'll give you a few examples of what that means. In 2018, we had a bus that was involved in a motor vehicle accident, and it was destroyed, and we had to replace that bus. We were able to take money out of the vehicle trust fund in order to do that. Later on, the school was reimbursed through the process of the insurance claim for some of that money. But in order to address the transportation needs of the district quickly, we were able to replace that bus through the trust fund, and then the money that we got back went into the general fund from the insurance company. Likewise, we had an issue, and I believe that it occurred in last year, 2019, where we essentially lost all of our qualified drivers. We didn't have any qualified drivers that were capable of driving some of the vehicles that we had. And so we had to purchase a small minivan, one that didn't require special licensing in order to operate. We were able to do that through the process or through the trust fund. We used those funds to quickly purchase a vehicle that was able to be used by the staff that we had available to use it, and to provide the transportation and to meet the transportation needs of the district that way. And so that was achieved through funds in the trust fund. And then again, we sold a bus that that was no longer being used because we didn't have a driver for it, and that money went into the general fund as is typical. So generally, what happens is we run into unforeseen circumstances, and while it is true that we do not have any vehicle purchases planned, and there is money in that fund currently, there is the possibility, and again, just two examples in the last couple of years of circumstances that arise that require us to sort of take immediate action to address the district's transportation needs, and we do that through the trust fund. And generally speaking, and I think it's borne out in the last two instances since I've been on the board, when we do use those funds, a lot, it's often offset later down the road with insurance or sales of vehicles, but certainly circumstances can arise where we don't have that income to offset it, but we need to address it quickly. So that's the purpose of the trust fund, and the need to have some money there to address unforeseen transportation issues.
Thank you, Jay. Yes, Jerry.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything Jay said, with the exception of the need to increase the size of the trust fund. We agree it's nice to have the trust fund. We agree it's useful to be there. It's just that the current fund balance is appreciably higher than it needs to be. We'd either prefer to see that 10,000 added to what's in Article 13 or given back to the taxpayers. So rather than, at some point, it's just too voluminous for its needs, and we think it's more than adequately funded at this point, based on the testimony that we've received. Thanks.
Thank you, Jerry. We'll move on to Article 15, to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate 10% up to the amount of $10,000 to be placed in the school equipment expendable trust fund, with said funds to come from the June 30, 2021 unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2021. The school board recommends this appropriation. The budget committee does not recommend this appropriation. We'll recognize Jay.
And sorry, Robert, this was technology?
School equipment.
Oh, equipment. Okay, sorry. So similarly to the other funds, the school equipment fund is used for things throughout the school that sort of qualify as equipment. In recent expenditures include a new kiln for the art room, kitchen air cooler, a basketball hoop winch, some fitness equipment for the school's workout room. There's been a number of issues over the years of items in the school's kitchen needing to be replaced, soccer goals, things that are essentially equipment. Those expenditures are range typically anywhere between $1,500 to $18,000, depending on what that piece of equipment is. But basically, unforeseen equipment failures, replacements, things of that nature that happen throughout the school, we like to keep a reasonable fund balance to address those issues as they arise.
Thank you.
Can I interrupt for a second? I think that participants are having a hard time raising their hands. So I don't know how we can fix that. Thank you. Heather Kril is raising her hand right now.
Okay. Heather, you may go.
No, I'm raising my actual hand here. I'm not sure if the way the Zoom was set up, but when we click on our three dots, raising our hand isn't an option. I'm not sure if that's something we can fix like on the fly, or if we should just have people put their video on. But I just wanted to state that, and this is for people who are watching and not necessarily part of the budget committee or the school board, but we recognize that this is a really weird way to hold our school district meeting, and it's hard to feel like you can jump in and comment. But as they're talking about the articles, if you feel like you support the school board's version of the budget, this is when you're supposed to say that. Or if you feel like you support the budget committee, this is where that dialogue is supposed to take place. So I would just like to, I was trying earlier to figure out the technology piece, but so far, I just want to, for the record, have it to state that I very much am in support of the school board recommendations for each of these warrant articles that have been discussed so far.
Thank you, Heather. I didn't realize that some people don't have that raise hand function. It appears on my screen, so I'm not sure why. So I think that's a great idea, is to turn your video on, and I'll try to look for somebody raising their actual hand. I do have, I believe, 5 pages of participants on my screen because I can only show a certain number on my iPad at one time. So I'll try, but if I don't see you, keep waving your hand until I do eventually see you. I do see Ginny with her virtual hand up. Go right ahead, Ginny.
I just wanted to tell the people who can't find their virtual hand, if I was looking for the more button that you talked about on mine, down at the very bottom, there is a little button that says reactions. And if you click on that, there is a hand raising feature underneath of that. I don't know if it's a Mac thing or whatever, but I just wanted to share that out with anyone who is trying to raise their hand and can't figure out where to find it. That's
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. And Sharon, go ahead.
Like Ginny, I was going to give a suggestion for raising your hand. For my computer, if I've got participants at the bottom, and if I click on the word participants, it brings up all the list of participants on the right, and that's where my raise hand function is.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's some opportunity to learn depending on which app we're using to, or website we're using to access Zoom. Tammy, I did see your actual hand waving. Are you all set now?
I had the same exact comment that Sharon had. I have the
Perfect.
same program.
Thank you. And Mrs. Kril is absolutely right. Normally, when we talk about an article, when we move on, we've moved on from an article. But it is very important to speak up tonight. If it's something we've already discussed, I will allow you to back up and discuss that. It is good for the school board to hear, I agree with the school board. It's good for the school board to hear, I agree with the budget committee, because on Thursday, they need to make a decision on what the final article of warrants will, or the warrant article will look like. So speak up on anything we've covered so far, please. And I don't know if many of you probably attended the budget hearing. There were some very well thought out, great speakers there. If you're just comfortable saying, I agree with the budget committee, that's fine too. You don't have to have a long presentation if you're uncomfortable with that. And
Rob,
John
could I
Kimball,
say
go right
one-
ahead.
Rob,
Yes.
could I just say at this point, could we continue through the warrant and then maybe go back warrant article by article and start conversation again so that it's together?
Sure.
Okay.
John, I did call on you, so I'll let you go and then we'll go back to Matt's plan. But John, you're muted.
Okay, I just wanted to let you know that I apologize for being late. I hadn't had Zoom installed on my computer. So I tried using the phone directory method and the passcode wasn't accepted.
Okay, I'm not sure why that was, but I'm
Right,
glad
so
you made it
that
in.
might be a reason. If you're not having a lot of participation, just keep that in mind.
Sure. Well, if anyone comes in contact with somebody, remind them that this video will be available on YouTube tomorrow. If you search for Kank Connections, Mr. Adams' class gets these videos up at the next school day. So anything can be reviewed before Thursday and certainly before next Friday. So we'll continue on so that we do have all those conversations together. I think that's a great idea, Matt. We left off with Article 15, so we'll move on to 16 to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate 10% up to the amount of $10,000 to be placed in the School Technology Expendable Trust Fund, with said funds to come from the June 30, 2021 unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2021. The school board recommends this appropriation. The Budget Committee does not recommend this appropriation. Jay, do you have anything specific for this article?
Just briefly, I just wanted to give the folks a sort of an idea of what the types of things that we're using this technology trust fund for. Last year, I believe it was last year, we replaced a financial server in the SAU office. We used the fund a couple of years ago, a sizable chunk of the fund to upgrade the Kent Connection equipment to sort of track with the digital era here and allow us to do the live broadcasts and things like that. We've used it just to replace some of the technology, the Chromebooks, the computers, laptops, and things in the school. And those expenditures typically are between $4,000 and $18,000 or $19,000, anywhere in there. So they tend to be sort of larger expenditures when we do make them, and so we like to keep a healthy balance in the fund in order to be able to address any technology issues as they arise.
All right, and Article 17, to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate 10% up to the amount of $10,000 to be placed in the Special Education Capital Reserve Fund, with said funds to come from the June 30, 2021 unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2021, contingent upon the passage of Article 11. The school board recommends this appropriation. The Budget Committee recommends this appropriation.
And I think I addressed this to a certain extent when we were discussing the sort of the switch over from a trust fund to a capital reserve fund. But basically, the money that's currently in the special education trust fund would be transferred over as part of that article. This is just the annual deposit of approximately $10,000, depending on whether or not that money is available, into that fund to keep up with the potential escalating costs of out of district placements and things like that. So there's any number of potential special education type expenditures that the district may encounter, and those vary wildly based on the needs of the students in our school, and things like an out of district placement can exceed $200,000 a year. We have about $183,000, I believe, in that fund currently, and so we want to be able to accommodate any unforeseen expenditures without having a significant impact on the operating budget of the school. So the capital reserve fund, and I don't think I mentioned this when I was speaking about the capital reserve fund earlier, but the change over to the capital reserve fund and putting the money into the capital reserve fund also has the added benefit of helping the school maintain its legal requirement of confidentiality when it comes to students that require special education services. When we're sort of forced to hold a bond hearing for students that for specific expenditures, it's often even with our best efforts ends up with information out into the public that could be used to identify the student. And we have obligations as a district to protect the confidentiality of the students and their educational records and their health records and things like that. So, and I apologize I didn't mention that, but this additional $10,000 just represents this year's chunk of money that we would put into the fund. This is a normally annual reoccurring deposit for potential expenditures in the special education realm.
Thank you, Jay. And Jerry Stringham, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And once again, we support this fund, this trust fund, both existing We have supported putting the additional 10,000 in there, even though there's 184,000 there now. This can be very critical given the current structure of how we at the state level handle children with severe needs, which is that that it's upon the local school district to pay those funds. I would like to point out to the school board that there is a bill in the State House that would allow SAUs or communities to essentially have an insurance policy. So instead of maybe having a reserve, you might put in 10,000 a year, and with 80 school systems participating, and the payments would come out of that community fund. So it would just be an expense every year, whether you had a student or not. But as of now, that doesn't exist. And I think that this reserve fund is very important for those types of needs. As we said, I think the school board, we would support them keeping this 10,000, but moving the other 10,000s up to the fund that we mentioned before, as they are seem sufficiently funded for the purposes that they serve at this point. So, thank you.
Thank you. And Jerry, just to confirm, if an article says the budget committee does not recommend this, all those $10,000 should be added and put into Article 13's 60,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, that
What
was
you'd recommend the school board?
that was the only way we could do this. We were just giving a yes or no on these articles.
Right.
You know, the money could be returned to the taxpayer, or in our case, we thought it would be, we would support increasing one of the other trust funds. So that, you know, just based on the utilization we've seen, its general purpose, and the level of funding that's there now.
Thank you. And I'll recognize John Kimball.
Yes, it appears to me that the wording on Article 17 is predicated on the fact that Article 11 will be accepted. In case it's not, does the wording on this need to be addressed to also, you know, Article 12 to make sure that we're putting the money in the expendable trust fund?
I think that's a very valid point, and perhaps the school board might consider rewording it on Thursday to say that into the capital reserve fund or expendable trust fund. We'll certainly run that by council and may make that change on Thursday. Thank you, John.
Can our council respond? I mean, can we ask our council right now?
Sure, Gordon, go ahead.
Well, we can look at that. I don't believe that it's going to be permissible, John, to have an alternative appropriation into one or two different articles. It has to be for a particular purpose. And you have to specify that. It may be possible to make it, you know, in the event that Article 11 passes, that it would go to Article 12, but I don't think so, because I think you've got, when you have an appropriation in a meeting, it's got to be for a specific purpose to a specific article. So I think in that event, you just lose the $10,000 this year and hopefully put in 20 next year. But we can look at it.
John, is your hand still up, or do you have something
Yeah,
else to add?
I guess based upon what I'm hearing, would it be more appropriate to introduce a new article with the words specific to the transfer into the expendable trust fund, just as a contingency in case Article 11 fails?
Can't add a new article now.
Okay. So I'll leave it up to you folks to decide. Thank you.
You're welcome. Article 18 is to see if the district will vote to authorize the school board to convey an easement to the town of Lincoln over a small portion, 11,049 square feet of Lincoln Woodstock Cooperative School District property for the town to use as emergency turnaround at the end of Pleasant Street on such terms and conditions as the school board determines are in the best interest of the district. The town constructed a hammerhead in 2007, but the original authorization and executed easement of the property cannot be located. And I'll recognize Matt Manning to, if you know who's speaking on that.
Jay Duguay is going to speak to that.
Perfect.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Bob. So the next two warrant articles, is 18 and 19, I believe, are sort of related. The school board was approached last year by a local resident with a request to be able to access her property through a right-of-way off of the town's emergency hammerhead turnaround. I call it a hammerhead turnaround at the end of Pleasant Street. At that time, and in looking into that issue, both the town and the school doing so, it sort of was revealed that back in 2007, when this issue initially came up before the school board, the grant of the easement to the town to construct that hammerhead was never recorded in the Grafton County Register of Deeds, and so is not effective. And also it did appear, based on the advice of our counsel, that even if it was, it may not have been properly granted because it never went to the town on a warrant like we're proposing for this warrant this year. Basically, what we're looking to do with regards to this warrant article is just correct that issue, to give the town the proper easement for the emergency turnaround that has already been constructed and has been in use, for 14 or so years at this point. So I believe that the turnaround was constructed fairly quickly after it was approved back in 2007. So it's been there, it's been in use, and it's specifically for the purposes of allowing emergency vehicles to turn around at the end of that street where it's otherwise a dead end. So the next article, Article 19, is sort of attendant to that, and sort of what kicked off our sort of looking into the easements with regards to the Pleasant Street area, was when a local resident, Denise Harradine, requested permission from the town in order to access her property from that same area and that same hammerhead turnaround. The request went to the town of Lincoln first for a driveway permit. The town essentially sent Ms. Harradine to the school board, and then we sort of looked into how that would happen or whether that was possible, and that's what sort of gave us or led us to the conclusion that we needed to represent the town's easement to the voters, and then as well as give Ms. Harradine an opportunity to request of the voters as well the permission just to access her property from that same easement. And it's my understanding, I received a letter that was forwarded to the school, that the town has already approved Ms. Harradine's permit contingent upon the town of Lincoln voters, or sorry, the district voters approving the Article 19. So these are related to the same issue here. I believe that the board doesn't really take a position on Ms. Harradine's request. That's going to be up to the voters, and I think the plan was to give her an opportunity to speak this evening if she wished to do so. But we did recommend, the board did recommend taking up the issue and correcting the issue of the easement for the town of Lincoln for the already constructed emergency turnaround. So it's a bit of a complicated situation. Certainly happy to answer any other questions if there are any.
Thank you, Jay. I don't see any questions. If Denise Harradine would like to address the meeting, certainly you may.
It looks like John Kimball's got his hand up.
Sure. Well, let's hear from Denise if she is here.
I wasn't able to unmute. Yeah, I requested from the town. I've gotten permits from from Nate Hadaway, and he has drawn up a design that would be of cost to me to hook up to the sewer and water. And he has approved that design. And the town has approved it as well, as long as Article 18 is approved. So it's like Jay said, that they're contingent. My article is contingent on the prior one. And I would hope that it's, you know, considered to go forward. That's it. I was actually, I have two deeds. I have two pieces of land. And so that piece of land that's on Pleasant Street was with a separate deed, and I have a separate deed to School Street. And so there are track 1 and track 2. And I am landlocked if I'm unable to use that piece of property. And in buying that piece of property, I submitted the information that it was sold to me as a 2-lotted piece, and it is deeded a two-track piece of land. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Denise. John Kimball, go ahead.
Yeah, right. The wording is in Article 18 where we had to grant permission for emergency turnaround. Is that really a valid consideration? In other words, do we need that type of documentation to be able to turn around an ambulance in the school parking lot?
Well, so I guess I'll take that up, Robert, if it's okay.
Yes.
So it's not in the school parking lot, Mr. Kimball. It's actually at the end of Pleasant Street. So if you go up Pleasant Street, it used to dead end just sort of into the woods. Now there's a turnaround that sort of angles up to the left, and there's a spot to sort of pull in, back up, and turn emergency vehicles, ambulances, and fire trucks and things around at the end of the road. And that property that turnaround is constructed on what is the property of the district. That's school property. In order to accommodate, the need for that emergency turnaround to be able to get the vehicles turned around at the end of the road, the district at the time granted the town permission, and for whatever reason, sort of the technicalities of it were never sort of followed through with to sort of finalize that easement and to finalize that permission. Now, if what happens if the town votes that article down and the town of Lincoln no longer has that easement? I don't actually know what, and maybe Gordon would have a better idea, or the attorney, or the district's attorney would have a better idea about, what the consequences of that would be. But it just makes sense to the board, and I think to most reasonable people to just sort of correct the mistake. It was in essence an oversight to not properly file whatever paperwork needed to be filed, and allow the town of Lincoln to continue to use that for the emergency purposes. So they do sort of need permission from the district in order to have constructed what they constructed on school property. Ostensibly, that permission was given, although apparently not officially.
Let me just clarify. This is just a housekeeping item to clarify and dot the I's and cross the T's of a transaction that took place 14 years ago. And that's all this is. It's a housekeeping item to get the proper authorizations on the record and to execute the proper document so that it's on the record and at the registry of deeds that says to the town that they have permission to continue to utilize as an easement the turnaround that they constructed on school district property. It was originally contemplated that that's what was going to take place. No one can find the completed paperwork from 2007. So this is a go back, do it again, not with any construction, but just to do the paperwork so that the paperwork is up to date the way it needs to be in order for the town to continue to maintain on school property a turnaround. So it's really a housekeeping item. And out of that housekeeping item came Ms. Haradine's request to tie into that. The town's granted that. And so we have a separate warrant article for the school district to consider authorizing an additional easement over school district property for Ms. Haradine to tie into the town's turnaround. It's essentially a town street, but it's on school property and the school owns it. There's a completely engineered plan and surveyed plan that is ready to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds that was executed back in 2007 that shows all of this. So there's no question about what's going to happen. It's just a matter of getting the paperwork completed and properly authorized on the record so that all the I's and T's are dotted and crossed.
Okay. Now, taking that forward now and going to Article 18, if you look at the town map right now, the piece of land that the school district controls at the end of Pleasant Street is a fairly straight boundary piece of land. How will the easement impact any future development that the school may want to do on that property?
It won't at all, because the only piece of property that's covered, whoops, no, I'm not on mute, saying mute. It won't at all
We can
because
hear you.
the piece of property that is in, the easement essentially runs just a little bit larger than the constructed hammerhead turnaround that already exists. So it's very small. It's only, what does it say, 11,000 square feet of property at the end of Pleasant Street. So it's an easement for the town to maintain a turnaround. Doesn't deed the school district's property away and doesn't convey the district's right to continue to make use of that property. The town can maintain a turnaround there. And obviously, if the school district wants to make use of the property, it will be able to do so, so long as it doesn't interfere with the town's right to maintain a turnaround on that portion of property, and Ms. Haradine to access that portion of property.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. You're welcome.
I might add something.
Yes.
It was brought to my attention by a couple of people in town, and I'm not an engineer or anything, but it was brought to me that calling it an emergency turnaround might be an incorrect verbiage. It might, because a fire truck actually could not probably turn around in that area. But as far as UPS trucks and things like that, there was no way originally, it just ended. So the UPSs and FedExes and all these other smaller trucks could never turn around. They always had to back out. But it was brought to my attention that calling it an emergency turnaround might be the wrong word. That's it.
Yes, Tammy, go ahead.
The largest of the town of Lincoln's fire trucks have successfully turned around on that hammerhead on several occasions. I live on Pleasant Street. I've seen it.
And I think if it's called emergency, it doesn't preclude other people from using it. So I don't think that it may be an emergency way that others take advantage of.
Correct, because it's a town road.
Great. Okay. Perfect.
So I think that covered 18 and 19. We'll move on to Article 20, which is by petition, shall the Lincoln Woodstock Cooperative School District rescind the school district's budget committee pursuant to RSA 195:12-a. This is a petition warrant article submitted per RSA 197:6. I believe I have a speaker arranged for this article.
Hi, Robert.
Yes, Katie
speak to that.
West Scambio, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Katie Scambio, a resident of Lincoln. And before I begin to talk about Article 20, I would like to express my support for the budget that the school board is presenting. I've been asked to speak about Article 20 by petition to rescind the school district's budget committee. From my understanding, a majority vote is needed for this article, and I urge the community to vote yes on Article 20. Over the past few years, the majority of the budget committee positions have not been filled by election. The positions have been filled by write-ins or by appointment from existing budget committee members in order to form a quorum. Since these members have not been elected, the community has had no say in who will represent them and the interests of our children. Voters have not supported and voted for the budget committee budget when it has been different than the school board's presented budget of that continuous year. As an educator of 18 years and a mom of 2 young Lin-Wood elementary students, I've been disheartened by the behavior and language used by some of the members of the budget committee as I listened to their meetings this winter. Some of the budget committee members used words such as incompetent, untruthful, and uncooperative in regards to specific services, programs, and staff of Lin-Wood. Many of their discussions and questions showed their lack of understanding of positions and services needed for a daily schedule in our school. The budget presented by the committee this year does not financially support the staff to provide the children of Lin-Wood with the excellent education we've all been accustomed to. The budget committee budget includes cutting staff, therefore greatly increasing the number of students in each classroom. Having more students in classrooms due to fewer teachers may not allow the appropriate distance we need in this pandemic between students and staff, possibly forcing Lin-Wood into a remote or hybrid situation. Like many schools in New Hampshire who don't have separate budget committees, the Lin-Wood school community should have confidence that the school staff and administration, in conjunction with the elected school board, be able to present a budget to the voters that would allow the Lin-Wood school staff to offer an excellent education to our students. This can be done with a separate budget committee, this can be done without a separate budget committee, who in the words spoken public at virtual meeting, regarded their proposed budget as offering merely an adequate education for our kids. I encourage all voters who care about the social, emotional, and academic growth of our children of Lincoln and Woodstock to vote yes on Article 20 and rescind the budget committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I'm not seeing any other hands. I will take up Matt's idea of going back to the beginning. If you cannot raise your hand, please turn on your video and wave your actual hand versus your virtual hand. Before that, I do see Victoria Martin's hand is up now. Go ahead, Victoria.
Hey, I'm happy to wait until the end if that's the way you prefer to do it.
Okay. Chris McClure.
Thank you. I just want to say I'm in complete support of the decision to vote against number 20. Everything that Ms. Scambio just said, I'm in complete support of. Thank you.
So Chris, you would support voting for it, not against it. For it would be to rescind the budget committee.
Thank you. For it to rescind the budget committee. So thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. So again, I apologize for the virtual raise hand debacle, we'll call it. So again, turn on your video, wave at me. Please keep waving until I see you, because I have several pages of people to look through to see who's waving. But we'll go back to Article 5. I'm not going to read it in its entirety. Article 5 was the bond for $540,000 for the HVAC system at the Lin-Wood Elementary School. So at this time, we're going to talk just about Article 5. If you have questions or comments, this would be your opportunity to do that. And Jerry Stringham, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I actually was, for the first time I tried to raise my hand, I was clapping instead of raising my hand. It's a little bit different symbols than I was used to and structure of them. Just on the other side, and just to talk about what the Budget Committee's concerns were about Article 5, which is the time, largely around the timing of the new heating system. When we had open discussion about it, there was good points brought up by the community that the system ought to have certain filtrations and things that would help make the school better and could be built into this project. In addition, we think this is an ideal project to consider under the state capital budget allocation formula, which the state has just been enriched by about $700 million from the federal government. Since it's kind of one-time appropriations, they're going to be looking for capital, and there already is about 54 million even before that in the capital budget to fund projects like this. So we had concerns about the level of detail in the proposed work plan that we saw. Many of us participated in the early February open meeting about that in front of the school board. The testimony also was this is not a time critical project. So there is a potential for this project to actually be funded without taxpayer dollars. And we think it should be respect, and we take and we dedicate our capital effort this year to the finishing the long-term roof repair, and take a deep breath and do this project a year down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris McClure, I don't know if your hand is still up or if you have something new. Brian Angelongo. No, I'm sorry, I thought you had your hand up when I.
No, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to just touch on that. Some of the there's been this discussion about how there's other options and all that, and a lot of that discussion seems to come in the 23rd hour. We've given ample opportunity for community, the budget committee, which members of the budget committee started this project years ago. They felt the need to start this project, and it's kind of uncomfortable that now they're on the side of not completing the project. We put ample time into it. The things you hear is that, well, what if we put it off? Well, right now is the best time for us to get these funds at low rates. Also, the more we put things off, and as certain committees have mentioned, we need to maintain things and we need to fix things, and putting it off and waiting for it to happen seems to be an ongoing here where let's kick it down the road some more. Our last kicking it down the road raised the cost from what this potentially was a few years back when we were looking at the project by like $200,000, give or take. There's changes as we wait years and years to complete these projects. And then you may hear, and I just touched on it before it's brought up, is why are we focusing on the elementary school? It's not the older of the systems, and that's another misnomer that we see in these conversations at the last minute. But the high school, yes, it was put in 1963. However, its burners and its controls were all upgraded in 2001 and 2013. So its equipment is 25 years newer than what we have, you know, and I just want to, you know, keep in mind that this is a good opportunity to make this project happen and a good time frame to get it done, you know, and I'll end with that. Thank you, Robert.
Sorry, I muted myself. Matt Manning, go ahead.
Thanks, Rob. I know the feeling. I just wanted to Jerry's point, if funding becomes available through grants or other means that are more affordable to the district, it's obviously something that the school board and the administration would pursue, whether it's a heating system, equipment, a new piano, anything. We're always looking for grant funds to support any of the projects, big and small, you know, before we bring it to the town and have to go through taxation to do that. And, you know, the school board, every school board member is a property owner as well. So, you know, we try to be the best stewards of the funds that we can and the projects. Thank you.
You're welcome. Heather Kril, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I've never learned so much about HVAC systems as I have this year working in a school during a pandemic. So I really think that there is no better time but this year to put that money forward to keep our schools as safe and healthy and clean as possible.
Thank you, Heather. And Tracy Brumlett, go ahead.
I also support our Article 5.
Thank you. Jay Duguay, go ahead.
Thanks, Rob. So I would just note that Mr. Stringham suggested that maybe we hit the pause button on this, you know, to look into upgrading, you know, some of the safety features regarding the filtration systems and things like that. And I would just note that those discussions have already began. Mark Hood, who's our facilities manager here at the district, has already begun the discussions with Wayne Fillion, who's the engineer of the project, to incorporate some additional air filtration and air cleaning apparatus into the system. And to the extent that that costs some more money, and there may be some grant funds available for things like that, those are the types of things that, you know, if it was a little bit extra money to upgrade the system to that sort of, with those features, we could use things like the facilities trust fund or the equipment trust fund for those upgrades. So those discussions have already begun. The process of potentially incorporating some of those features is sort of, those discussions are underway. So that's not something that we can't do in this year's. If it's approved for this year, it's not as if we can't. We sort of missed the boat on including some of those additional features.
Thank you. Any other comments on Article 5? Okay, we'll move to Article 6. To see if the district will set the salaries of the school board, moderator, school district clerk, ballot clerks, supervisors of the checklist, school district treasurer. And Article 7 is
Robert,
the operation, but
I don't have the raise hand function, but I just want to we've always had that article as more informational for the voters, and it is part of the budget. So we've always had that historically there.
Thank you. And Article 7 is the Budget Committee's recommended sum of $8,267,338 for the operating budget. Are there any questions or comments regarding operating budget Article 7? Yes, Heather Kril, go ahead.
I'm sorry I'm talking so much. This is, I think it's really crucial that we maintain the really reasonable and responsible budget suggested by the school district and the school board. And I know personally, I sat through hours and hours and hours of budget meetings and school board meetings this winter. And I really appreciate the time and energy, but it came until the last half hour of the most recent budget hearing where monies were put back in for teacher positions. And I do not understand why it took so long for that to happen when the overwhelming support of the community throughout this process has been not to reduce the budget for teacher positions. There is still an outstanding 1/2 guidance position, and that needs to be taken off the table. There is absolutely no reason when children's mental health is at an all-time crisis that our school district would reduce our guidance department by a 1/2 position. I don't know how to make that any clearer as someone who wants her children to always have access to support in the school that goes beyond their parents, goes beyond their teachers, our guidance, our social workers, those people whose job it is to support their overall emotional, social health in our districts. We should have more, if you ask me. There aren't enough as it is. And I've seen these people work tirelessly and they're exhausted day in and day out. And to even suggest the reduction of a 1/2 position is ludicrous in 2021.
Thank you, Heather. Nobody should feel like they're talking too much. This is exactly what tonight is for. In a traditional meeting, we would be in the gymnasium and allow people to come up to the microphone. Some people know their answer is yes. Some people know their answer is no. Some voters are undecided and they want to hear what you have to say so they can make an informed decision. So please don't feel like you're speaking too much. And the budget committee, when they go down through the line items, they're looking at places where they think that there can be cuts. They are not allowed to take money out of any particular line item. So if they think that guidance budget could be reduced by some, that's their recommendation. The school board has a responsibility of not spending any more money than the bottom line. They certainly can keep guidance where it is and take that money from someplace else. So that $116,000 isn't necessarily coming out of the place the budget committee wants it to come from. It could be coming out of something else that is just as valuable to you. And there are several hands up now. I believe I saw Kevin Bells first, so we'll call Kevin.
Thank you. So when Mr. Barnaby, when we were first going through this, he had mentioned that the reduction here was taken from fencing and grounds work that could be done internally. So if I'm hearing you correct, Robert, and I thought I understood this before, is it's not merely taken away from a specific item, it's taken away from the budget, and the school board is up to required to spend that money how they deem appropriate. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay.
It's probably not as clear with the school as it might be with the town, but a good example with the town might be, we have a lot of snow this year and the plow budget and the sanding budget goes outrageous. They have to cover those expenses somehow. And it might mean they pull it from painting the sidewalks this summer because they had to spend extra money on sand. So should Mark could need to buy a lot of sand this year, that money has to come from somewhere. School board can move money around.
Right. So given that, I've again sat on more calls related to this than I ever thought I would, and I'm completely disheartened by the budget committee not listening to the support of the school board's proposed budget. I'm in full support of the school board's budget. To me, there's no question that we should be, not decreasing, because I haven't heard one good reason to make these cuts. I was hoping for a good reason to hear for these cuts, but I heard fencing and grounds work, and that seems kind of nitpicking at this point when you come to the 11th hour, 12th hour of making this budget proposal to the town. So I'm in full support of the school board budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Paula Hood, go ahead.
Thank you, Heather and Kevin. You both touched on things I wanted to say. I think in regards to the guidance position especially, I'm not sure where their thought process came in. I'm not sure where they're getting the information that led them to these suggestions. But as someone who works in that building very closely with our guidance, our social worker, our everyone, I can't stress enough the work that these people do. And it's before school, after school, during school, weekends, vacations. If I need something, I can call one of them at 10 o'clock at night and they're going to be there. And to think that we have students that wouldn't be able to access these services just breaks my heart. And I just want to say myself, I am in full support of the school board's budget. I do not agree with any of the budget committee's recommendations. And while I'm here, I also agree with the article to rescind the budget committee. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll recognize Tracy Brumlett.
Everyone has said exactly what my point is. We've gone over this a million times. The public has made its opinions well known. I too do not support the budget committee's recommendations. I wholeheartedly support the school board's budget, and I also support say yes to our Article 20. I think it's ridiculous in this day and age, the recommendations that they are making, and I totally support the school board.
And I'll recognize David Webster.
Thank you very much. I'm not a voting member of the school, so maybe I speak.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I just want to point out that with the situation that has occurred over the last maybe week of a situation of a missing member of our community, the Guidance Council has made it very, very important in the top of their drive to make sure that everybody has an understanding and a softness in their hearts to understand what's going on. And this hits me really hard because, I mean, losing that kind of stuff from a district is entirely inappropriate. And without those folks, we definitely needed that the last few days. And I really appreciate your time and thanks.
Thank you. Victoria Martin, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to say that I'm in full support of the school board's budget. I think our school board is fantastic. I think we have a really bright group of people that come from a bunch of different backgrounds. I've sat in on a bunch of meetings since the summer, and everybody on the school board, it really feels like they're careful. They consider all of the information that's presented to them. They're deliberate, and they're looking out for what's best for the kids in the community and what's best for the staff at the school. And I think that they are budget conscious. So on one hand, I understand that we're saying that, cutting, a certain amount of money from guidance doesn't mean that that money is going to be cut from guidance. But I think that there's a broader consideration there and a bigger picture. And this is a little bit of a comment on Article 20 as well, is that, we have a budget committee that chose guidance as the area that they wanted to try to cut money from, or that they targeted as a spot that maybe we could reduce money. I think it really illustrates the fact that that this budget committee doesn't represent the school, doesn't represent the community, and is maybe a little or maybe a lot out of step with the needs of the students in the school. In the middle of a pandemic, when everybody's stressed and kids are under an incredible strain. To think about guidance as a place to target is more of a commentary on where the budget committee is coming from, I think, than, you know, the reality of that's where the money is going to be cut from. So I have more to say about the budget committee when we get to Article 20, but I do want to say I'm in full support of the school board's budget. I think it's carefully considered. I think it's reasonable. I think our tax rates are reasonable. And that's it. Thanks.
Robert, you're muted.
Thank you. Pat Barr, go ahead.
Hi, I'd like to say as a taxpayer in the town of North Woodstock that I am in full support of the school board's budget, and I am not in favor of the budget committee's recommendations, and I am in favor of Article 20. Thank you.
You're welcome. Jeff Kril, go ahead.
Jeff Kril, Woodstock resident. I am in support of the budget from the school board. I would like to thank everybody for their hard work in this, and the meetings have been very informative on both sides of any issue. So thank you very much. And a side note, I've only dealt with the elementary school, but I'm amazed. I drop my son off every day, and I'm amazed all the extra work that people are doing. So if it doesn't get said, I just want to say thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. John Kimball, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to take and thank all of the teachers and the educational staff at the Lin-Wood High School. As a former graduate of Lin-Wood High School, things are dramatically different when I graduated back in '73. Currently, my grandson's attending elementary school there, and the education he's receiving, bar none, is 1,000 times better than what he had from where we came from in Florida. One of the things that stands out in the budget is the fact that we're arguing between the budget committee and the school board budget. I'm full agreement that the school board budget should be the one that's approved, but there's a delta in there of about $116,000. One of the striking things that I've seen, and not to take away from the collective bargaining process, but we expect a lot from our teachers, and our teachers have consistently demonstrated above and beyond what's really reasonable. They put themselves in harm's risk without any equivocal deliberations. And bottom line is, I would like to see every teacher that's assigned a specific grade on page 4 and 5 of the annual report. And I started at the kindergarten level, and I ended up at the guidance counselor 7 to 12 level. And if we were to take and make every teacher's base salary start at $52,000 a year, that's $1,000 a week. That would be a delta of $111,000. And I would like to see that amount at a minimum added to the budget committees if we cannot take and have the full amount from the school board budget.
Thank you, John. And I'm going to scroll through the pictures. So again, if your raise hand virtual is not working, go ahead and raise your actual hand, and I will look for those.
I see Jane Ludwig.
Okay. Jane Ludwig, go ahead. Hey, Jane, you're muted, but go right ahead. Unmute and go right ahead.
I still do that. I'm going to wait for Article 20 after Victoria Martin speaks, if that's okay, when we get to that. So
Absolutely.
I'll have to raise my hand this way. Thank you.
You're welcome. So any other comments or questions on Article 7 for the operating budget? Hey, Kelsey Bowden, go ahead. Kelsey, we can't see you and you're muted, but if you're trying to speak, you may go right ahead now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, I'm on my phone. I've spoken in a previous budget hearing in regards to my concerns with the Budget Committee's proposed budget. So my stance on that is pretty clear. And I just wanted to reiterate the fact that I am in support of the school board's proposed budget and not the Budget Committee's. I wholeheartedly believe that the school board can make the necessary budgetary adjustments each school year that's needed. So I therefore also support warrant article number 20 in eliminating the Budget Committee. But just in case that doesn't pass, feel free to write me in for the one-year seat for the Budget Committee. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hannah Kinney, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I am a North Woodstock resident. I have 2 children. One will be entering kindergarten in the fall. And I support the school board's budget proposal. As I understand it, it does not raise our taxes, and it's common sense and appropriate, and there's been a lot of work and thought put into it. And as Kelsey mentioned, I'm also, you could also write me in for Budget Committee if it's not rescinded for the one-year spot. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Dr. Martin, I see your hand is up if you have something new or if it's forgotten up, but if it's new, go right ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I had one more thing that I wanted to add that I forgot, and say that the work that in saying that I feel like the Budget Committee is sort of out of step with what the kids need in the school and what the needs of the students are in this time. I just want to say that I think the guidance staff at Lin-Wood is incredible. I've seen firsthand what they can do for kids, and it's really, really remarkable. There are so many things that that can get in the way of kids learning, and without being able to tackle those things that become barriers, they can't access the education. And that's what this guidance department does for our most vulnerable kids. They address these barriers that get in the way of the kids' ability to even access an education. So I just can't overstate how critical I think they are, especially for our most vulnerable students. And so that was sort of what I was getting at when I was saying the fact that the Budget Committee targeted that just was a big red flag to me, that this Budget Committee doesn't understand the needs of the kids, or maybe you know, it's just kind of out of step with what the community is in support of. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next article, which is the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Lin-Wood Education Association, NE New Hampshire, and the Lincoln Cooperative School Board. Article 9 is, if Article 8 is defeated, to have a warrant article, so we'll skip over that one. Article 10 is $154,000 for the replacement of the Lin-Wood Middle High School roof area of about 14,000 square feet. We'll open that up for any questions or comments. Yes, David Webster, go ahead.
Yes, we definitely need a roof on our school. Otherwise, we don't really have one. A school, that is. I mean, it's like Lego building blocks. You start to build them up and you put something over it so nothing breaks down below. It's really important to have all of those things, all the maintenance jobs truly supported. Thank you.
You're welcome. Heather Kril, go ahead. You're muted.
Support the roof, please.
Article 11 is,
Oh,
go ahead.
well, yeah. As far as 10 is concerned, is this the last piece that has to be done for the roof? I know you've been working on it for a while. Is this the last piece?
This is, it's been working on for 10 years and this is the final year.
I remember.
I don't remember the exact year, but Vance Pickering, I think, said 2038 or something like that before hopefully we need to address anything again.
That'll be good. Thank you.
I think it started in 2013.
You're welcome.
If we get the, Rob, if
It
we,
did,
or Jane, if we
Vance,
get the 25-year life expectancy out of it, we won't have to begin to replace the first part of the project, which is 2013 until roughly 2038.
Thank you, Vance. And Rob, thank you.
You're welcome. Article 11 is the Special Education Capital Reserve Fund. And Article 12 is the Special Education Expendable Trust Fund. And if we create that other fund, it would be moving those funds so they can go into the new capital reserve rather than a trust fund. Article 13 is to raise $60,000. Correction, it's not raising, it's to use the unassigned fund balance of up to $60,000 for school facility expendable trust fund. Article 14 is up to $10,000 from the unassigned fund balance for school vehicle expendable trust fund. Article 15 is up to $10,000 from unassigned fund balance for school equipment expendable trust fund. Article 16 is up to $10,000 from unassigned fund balance for school technology expendable trust fund. Article 17 is up to $10,000 from unassigned fund balance for special education capital reserve fund. Article 18 is the easement to the town for the hammerhead that was created back in 2007. So as our council explained, just crossing Ds and dotting Is from something that's quite old and has already occurred. Article 19 is to a driveway easement for Denise Heridan that would be off that hammerhead turnaround. And Article 20 by petition is to rescind the district school board. Bonnie Ham, go ahead. You're muted still.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I just ask the voters to reconsider rescinding the school budget committee. Just because you may not have liked some of the things we discussed And we did look at the broader picture. The group for whatever this year looked at trends in New Hampshire, looked at average costs in New Hampshire, looked at enrollments, looked at where we might be headed in 5 years. And yes, obviously, we became overzealous. We discussed everything. But when it came down to the end, we heard those that showed up at the budget hearings. The process worked wonderfully. People were heard, and the budget committee adjusted their suggested cuts downward to 116,000. And yes, it is right that the school board uses the money given them for whatever. The guidance counselor may not come up missing. The school board may find a cut elsewhere, but we were looking for cuts, knowing that we need to come to a sustainable budget that will carry us into the future. And tonight is a prime example. You've got 2 new people that want to be on the board. You may not have liked the current board members, but that doesn't mean that a school budget committee isn't a good thing and doesn't serve a purpose for the school district of Lincoln and Woodstock. And that's all I have to say. Just because you didn't happen to like some of the ideas the current members proposed doesn't mean a budget committee is a bad thing. So I certainly am one that would suggest don't rescind the budget committee. The voters have the say as to who serves on it. So I just something to think about as you vote, and don't necessarily get rid of the budget committee, and choose the ones that you feel best represent you on the budget committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Tammy Ham, go ahead.
Hi there. Now, I don't think I've ever agreed with my mother-in-law before. However, I do see the value in having a budget committee. Maybe not the current committee as it stands. However, the checks and balances that a budget committee provides to the district, to the town, to whatever entity it is, are very valuable. It's encouraging to see Kelsey Bowden and Hannah Kinney step up and say, write me in. I would encourage all of you to keep the budget committee, but rally the troops, get some more write-ins, vote off the ones that are not doing the job the way the job needs to be done, and step up and get some folks on there that will do the job that the district needs to have done on the budget committee. I don't agree with the budget committee's budget. I don't agree with most of what the budget committee has said this year. However, I do believe that a budget committee is a valuable tool. And I encourage you all to rally the troops and step up and fill those positions with people that'll do a good job for the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Tucker, go ahead.
Yeah, anybody who's gone to the meetings knows that this is my first year doing this. I was not voted in. I was asked to be part of it, and I chose to do it as a learning experience and to find out what the process is all about. It's a difficult process, and my hat's off to those who asked to be written in. It is not easy to make decisions like this. I can tell you that I don't think it's right to get rid of the committee and to allow one group or one person to have the only pen that makes the decision. As has been said earlier, the budget committee is a way of means and ways, and it also is, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Anyways, it has been a great process, and I want those people to get involved. I want more people to get involved. I heard tonight that nothing was done until the 11th hour. Well, yeah, that's how it works. The budget committee worked exactly the way it was set up. We made overzealous ideas. I personally think that the budget committee should really be allowed to just say, hey, go back and take off another 116,000 rather than saying it has to come from this area, it has to come from that area. But that's a state mandate, or that's how it works. this process, from what I learned, there was very little give and take. The give and take came in the 11th hour when we listened to the community and gave back. Again, my feeling as my part of this is the 116 is something that can be found without reducing guidance, but as an overall budget. It seems that extra money every year goes into trust funds. And that's the excess, that's the idea of the excess money. Again, something that's learned this year by somebody who's new to it. So again, there's a lot to be learned. And just because we don't like what we hear doesn't mean get rid of it. There is a process, it worked. 1.2% is all that we took out from the original budget. And I believe that those in charge of the budget can take the money that we have put in our budget and allocate it so it will work very well for our students. That's without losing guidance. Those things can happen. So just my thought from someone who's very new to it and who unfortunately did not get his name on the ballot this year due to being out of town that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker. Any other questions or comments? I'm Victoria Martin.
I mean, I started to make this comment before, but I just want to say again, I think that Katie really made a good case for this article, and I'm in support of Article 20. I think the way that we have our budget committee operating now is more dysfunctional than having no budget committee at all. If the budget committee did what it was designed to do, which in my mind, it is a system of checks and balances where you have your administration and you have your school board coming up with a budget, and then you have a budget committee that goes through that budget line by line and says, well, this seems like it's been well thought out. This is a reasonable amount of money to pay for this. This is a reasonable cost for that. It's and to kind of check the budget and make sure that nothing's unreasonable. It felt very much in listening in on the budget committee meetings this year, like the budget committee was not approaching that job as, you know, let's look at this budget line by line carefully and decide whether we think that's a reasonable amount of money to spend on that line item. It felt more like, and it was even said in one of the meetings, we were told we had to cut from this budget. Mm-hmm. And look, it felt very much like they were just looking for places to cut and things to cut. And in my mind, that's not what the budget committee is for. It's really to check the budget that the school board and the administration has come up with and make sure that it's reasonable. If we don't have a budget committee that's made up of interested community members who represent the breadth of the community, who have kids in school, who are, you know, coming from a variety of different backgrounds, like our school board are, then, you know, we really just have a group of people that's a group of like-minded people who doesn't necessarily align with the community. If we can't get enough people interested in being on the school board that they're voted in and that they represent the community accurately, we shouldn't be having a budget committee. We had a couple of people elected, and then they sought out other like-minded people. And I think that's how we ended up in this mess. And yes, in the end, they only cut 1.6% or whatever, but not without creating a lot of drama, a lot of hard feelings, and upsetting a lot of people in town. And I don't think that should be the purpose of the budget committee. So again, I'm in support of Article.
Thank you. Jasmine Whedon, did you put your hand up? Yes, go ahead.
I will just echo some of what Vicki said. I do agree there should be checks and balance. However, I don't feel that that was the goal or even admitted what they feel their role was. And to the point of, you know, the changes being made in the 11th hour, I understand it's helpful to listen to all of the feedback and take in all of the information. However, we had serious debates and countless folks from the community for two meetings, 2 weeks in a row that went until really late at night. We couldn't have our school board meetings. And then finally at this meeting, it was the end of the meeting that they decided to change it. So it's less of a checks and balance at this point. And again, like, you know, what is the committee if it is people chosen by the folks that are on, if it's elected and it is from different areas and people bringing different thoughts to the table, I think that's a different thing. And I understand too that, well, I guess I'm a little bit confused, but some folks are mentioning specifically, you know, it sounds like you're charged with saying where you need to make the cuts, but then in the end, you know, you can't really say where you make the cuts. Just bringing up to make the cuts from special education is so incredibly tone deaf, and continuing to make the arguments that the community is clearly, not just the school board, but the community is clearly against, and continuing to push up against that, it's not an apt representation of our community at large. And the other thing I will say is that this isn't the first year that there have been challenges and miscommunication and disagreements between the school board and the budget committee. This is not the first year. This is certainly the kind of messiest it has gotten, but this is not the first year that it's been difficult. So I'll just say that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Kevin Bell, go ahead.
Thank you. As Jasmine said and Vicky said, you know, I believe there should be a check and balance to the school board budget, but I disagree with the process. I think Mr. Barnaby and Ms. Ham mentioned, that they went through a process, and I'm still unclear of what the process was, because there seemed to be no goal in anything any of the meetings that I sat in on. I just heard we had to make cuts. Well, why did we have to make cuts? The school board's budget was already reduced from prior year, so they had already, you know, put in cuts to move forward. So there seemed to, the process behind the checks and balances, there was no goal, there was no agenda, there was very little collaboration or understanding, mutual understanding of what was actually going on with the school. Listening to, you know, the superintendent adamantly, you know, support technology auditing, when this budget committee proposed, well, just trying to do it in-house, with the superintendent adamantly saying, no, we need this. We've been using it for years and years, and we need this in the event of a technology audit from, you know, along the line. It's not something that can be done in-house. And there just seemed in the meetings that I've listened to, just very out of touch with what was going on in the school, and not willing to listen to administrators or even understand what was going on with teachers and our guidance team. So with that, I am, you know, in support of Article 20.
Thank you, Kevin. Matt Manning, go ahead.
Just as a point of order, Ra, any school board member that's speaking to this article, I just want to make it clear that they're speaking as a community member. As the board as a body, I don't think it's appropriate that we have a position on this article. So I just want to make that clear to the community members that are listening.
Thank you. And we'll go to your vice chair for next.
I actually just wanted to note that Jane Ludwig had mentioned earlier that she wanted to speak, and she has been raising her hand.
Thank you. She's not on my first screen, so go right ahead, Jane.
Thank you. I unmuted this time. You know, I unfortunately didn't watch the budget committee and the school board meetings regarding how you came about the budget, or what was said or what was not said. I got to watch a little bit of the end part of it, and what I heard was very knowledgeable from both boards. I didn't hear the discourse that everybody is bringing up. I didn't hear any of that. I strongly believe and Tammy, I'm agreeing with you. Do you hear that? Tammy and I hardly ever agreed if you watch a select board. And she's coughing. Yahoo! But we always had disagreements but it was okay. And Tammy always says, it's good to disagree. It's good to have discourse because it all comes out in the end, the way that the townspeople want it. And when you talk about the community, I remember it was a wicked community with Cord was in school, and that was a school community. There's also 1,700 people in the town of Lincoln who support the school. So looking beyond that school community and to those other people, I know the school board did and has the responsibility to maintain taxes at a low rate and a wise and good rate. And the budget committee was simply trying in many ways to do that, not really knowing the school very well or being in the school. I'm just assuming from the outside, because I listened to you and you're like, hey, okay, let's process this. What will it look like? How many staff are you going to lose? You're going to lose 6? And I would, if I was on, I was like, nah, you can't take 6 staff out. So, being frugal is not a bad thing. It is not a bad thing. And I know that when you're impassioned, when your child is in school, and I get that piece too, but there are, again, 1,700 people in Lincoln. I think there's 16 or more in Woodstock. Someone else may know that. But what I want to ask is Gordon, can you tell me what this RSA means as far as rescind? If it gets voted on, does it mean that we'll never have another budget committee and depends solely on the 7 people?
It means that you won't until it's voted on to adopt it again.
So you have to adopt it again once it's taken out. Okay. Right. So I would urge people to think of the checks and balances and get other people in there with their opinions, process it and talk it out and come to some agreement. Because again, on both sides, thank you so much for what you do. The board, the school board, I know I've been there. It's not easy. And the budget committee, great job. Thank you both. And Vance, I heard rumor you're leaving. Is that true? I said it's probably not the place to bring it up, but good luck. So anyway, that's where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Yeah.
You're welcome. And yes, Vance did not seek re-election. His term is up this year. So you're right. Certainly grateful for years of service on the school board. Thank you. I'm sure somebody will address that on Thursday, but it's a good.
Yeah, I was gonna say something Thursday, Rob, but
I bet you are. Yeah. So a little foreshadowing for everybody. Stay tuned. All right, I'm scrolling through the screens now, looking for anybody waving their actual hand. I don't see anybody. So that brings us to the end of those articles. You can review this.
Excuse me, does Bonnie want to speak again?
No. Oh, no, I didn't take my hand down, I guess. I'm sorry.
No worries, that's okay. So again, you can review this meeting on YouTube, search for Kank Connection channel. The annual meeting and voting information is available on the school website, www.lin-wood.org. Remember, this is part 1. Part 2 is Thursday at 6 p.m. If you'd like to comment or ask questions to the school board, you may contact the superintendent's office by email, community@lin-wood.org. Telephones 603-745-2051, extension 210, or drop off at the superintendent's office, 78 Main Street, Unit 3 in Lincoln. Any of those comments or questions are due by 5 p.m. Thursday. I heard a couple of people, I don't think it's electioneering because we're not having an election tonight. So Kelsey Bowden and Hannah Kenny both said that you could write them in for budget committee 1 year. Please note that there's 1 year, there's 2 year, there's 3 years. So if you're going to write a write-in campaign, please make sure people know how many years you're seeking, because those votes don't get totaled together. If one person votes for you for 1 year and somebody votes for you for 2 years, you don't get 2 votes. You got 1 in each of those categories. So decide on what you want, and of course see what's open on that ballot. Be sure to mark your calendars for part 3. That's the voting. It's 1 week from Friday on March 26th at 2 p.m. until 6 p.m. in the middle high school multipurpose room. I'll give one more opportunity for any last minute comments. Yes, Matt Manning, go ahead.
I just, as always, Rob, thank you for all your work. You do a great job moderating these meetings, and I know we all appreciate it. And just thank you to the community for coming out tonight and voicing your opinions.
Thank you. You're welcome. And Heather Kril, go ahead.
Rob, I just wondered if you maybe could explain briefly what happens at Thursday's meeting. I know there are some people who've had some questions about like what we did tonight versus what's going to happen on Thursday.
Yeah, that's a great question. So according to House Bill 1129, the governing board, so in this case, the school board, will vote on amending articles. So when it comes to a particular article, somebody will move it, somebody will second it, just like we would in a traditional meeting. And then they have the opportunity to amend an article from questions, comments, things that they've heard tonight. They'll vote as a board what they want to amend. Then I'll entertain a motion to call the question, which will end debate for that night and finalize the warrant ballot for the ballot voting next Friday. So everybody should still attend on Thursday, see how the school board reacts to questions and comments tonight. And then there may be opportunity for more questions and comments on Thursday as well. The House bill does say the school board may get those questions. They certainly are allowed to summarize questions. They also can add them together and say, 8 people contacted us and said they're in favor of the school board. 8 people contacted us and said they're in favor of the budget committee. So they don't have to read every name and every comment. They can generalize and summarize.
One other thing to explain is the fact that at the final voting session on the ballot that you're going to have, you'll have a ballot for the election of officers, but there'll also be a separate ballot. And on that separate ballot, the first question will be a question about accepting the procedures that have been used for this meeting. So that is the first, that will be the first article on the ballot. And that first article will be, do you want to accept the procedures, which includes voting on the bond article after you vote on whether or not to accept the procedures. But so it will say that on the official ballot after all the other warrant articles are finalized by the board. All right.
Thank you. That's Gordon, our school district counsel. And he's absolutely right. The voters do get to say, yes, they approve of these procedures. All right, seeing nothing else for tonight, we're now in recess until Thursday, March 18th at 6 p.m. Thank you.